Hey guys, it's Mr. V over here doing a book review today for The Hunger Games Part 3, The Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. So this is Part 3 of The Hunger Games. It just continues and finishes the Hunger Games series, as Part 3 is the last one in the series. So Hunger Games Part 2, it left off on a cliffhanger where Gale, he tells Katniss that the Capital 12 has been destroyed. She's angry at everyone at the end as she found out that they've all been lying to her. And that's how it ended. It ended on a cliffhanger. So I really wanted to go to book 3 because not only did book 2 end on a cliffhanger, but I also wanted to see how it ended because I knew that this would be the final Hunger Games book. So I had a lot of wonder how this series would end. And it definitely was very interesting to how it ended. Now, the book, it starts out with basically, it's 1 month after book 2, and she is walking through District 12, and she is like walking through, seeing how it's all basically gone to ashes. All the survivors have moved to District 13, and she's just walking around and feels a lot of emotion. And it definitely had an interesting start because when she started that way, it was definitely very gripping, wondering like, okay, you know, that's really tough. It's been a month, and what has been going on since then? And it made you wonder what will happen, as you knew how Katniss felt and how just difficult it was. But there was also, when reading it, a lot of mystery to like what was going to happen with the rebels. And you kept wondering, are they telling the truth? Because they had lied to her before. And they were lying before, and that's why when reading it, you still wonder, like, are they telling the truth, or what's really going on? And it's a lot of fun when you think of it in that fashion. It was a lot of fun in the beginning of the book when I was doing that, and really wondering, is this the truth or not? And I think even the way she conveys it for Katniss is wondering a lot, are they lying, type of thing. So that was a lot of fun. And it was also a lot of fun is by the time you get to book 3, even by book 2, but by the time you get to book 3, you know the characters. You know the characters well, to where you focus a lot on the story, and you're always curious, like, okay, how will it be? Because now you can focus so heavily on the story as you know the characters well. While she does change some things about the characters, like they change based off certain situations, you know them, and that's why you can focus a lot on the story. So that's also a great thing. And this one had many storylines. It was just like the previous ones where there would be some twists. They would still have the main storyline going of they wanting to overthrow the Capitol. That is the main storyline. And that was still the main theme throughout the whole book of overthrowing the Capitol. How will they go about it? Will they do it? And while that is the main theme, she still had many little twists in there, and there's still many side storylines. And it's just like books 1 and 2. So that's also a lot of fun because there's basically drama throughout the whole book. This whole book has a lot of different drama because I wrote down some themes in here. There was action, there was adventure, there was lies, there was secrets, revenge, mystery, and there was just drama. So there was a lot of things going on in this book, which was a lot of fun. There's all different themes going on, and it just continued throughout the book. So that was a lot of fun, and it kept you on the edge of your seat because of that, in that you kept, like, you just wanted to keep reading. And while she probably kept it on the edge of your seat because of some of the storylines, I think one thing that probably kept me wanting to read it more was I just kept wondering, how will this end? And that's something that you just wanted to know, especially at the end of the series. You want to know, how will this end? And you know, so that was a lot of fun throughout the whole book, and even up to the very last few pages, I was wondering, like, okay, how will she end this? And that's always a lot of fun where it's not super predictable. So that's always good. Now, some of the things I didn't like about this book, I noticed that this had nothing to do with the Hunger Games. That is just dealing with the districts rebelling against the Capitol. You know, the first book was dealing with the Hunger Games and, you know, things like that. But I noticed that this had nothing to do with it at all. And it makes sense when, you know, they're rebelling against it, but she definitely strayed away from the initial point of the series. She definitely did a big stray away from it with zero to do with the Hunger Games. Even part 2 had things to do with the Hunger Games. This one had nothing to do with it. And it's not bad, but it's more a story of like rebellion and war and what happens. Like, what will you do, and like what are the consequences, and it has more story with that than the Hunger Games. So it's just something, I just wasn't a big fan of that aspect of it, just because it had absolutely nothing to do with it. And another thing I didn't like, though, was I felt that parts of the book were over dramatic, and that I think parts could have been cut down. The whole book was fun. Like, the book as a whole was still fun, but I think a lot of the parts were a little over dramatic. A good example is that I always read Wikipedia after finishing a book just to see, are there any cool things I didn't catch, or are there any tie-ins from other books, or something just fun, like extra notes people wrote. But I saw that 3/4 of the book, the first like 3/4 of the book, only gets 1.5 paragraphs of description, where the last fourth gets 3.5 paragraphs. So you can see that there was not a lot of substance in the first part of the book, considering the first 3/4 of the book got very little description, where the last just 1/4 gets over double the amount of space. And it's just because I felt some parts were too over dramatic in the beginning and stretched out too long, just because I think they were a little too dramatic. So that was another thing I didn't like. And lastly, I was not into the whole PETA storyline. I just did not like it in this book. I won't say where they go with it because I don't want to spoil that aspect, but it just didn't grab me in this book. And it felt kind of too weird, or felt forced. It almost felt like she didn't know where to go with it, so she just went in this direction. And I just was not a fan of the PETA storyline. I saw people online, some were really into it, but others were not. It's just, I don't know, it just did not grab me for this book. I still like the PETA storyline up into this book, and I said this one just felt too weird, and that was just too weird for me. So that was something I didn't like. Now, as for the absolute end to the series, and my feelings on the end, because this is the final in the series, so I really want to see, how did this end? So my opinion on the end was that I just had a very mixed opinion on the end. I don't think it was bad, but considering this is the end to the series, I just felt mixed, because she definitely wraps the whole series up. She doesn't, nothing goes unanswered. She answers everything, and that's always a great thing. So everything gets unanswered, or everything gets answered. But in the end, I just felt unfulfilled by the end of it. Something about the end, I felt unfulfilled, and it didn't grab me like the other books. And that's a big aspect when it's the end to the series and it's a final book. You always want it to be a great one. Of course, you go in with a lot of excitement, but you just want it to have a nice end. And this one I felt mixed. Again, she answers everything, so that's always great. But something about it just left me unfulfilled. And I can't say it, but it just felt unfulfilled. And I felt she could have ended it a little better than this. Because one thing is that I felt some characters didn't get a proper end to the series. The ones that survived and the ones that got killed. So it's not just the ones who got killed, but the ones that survived too just did not get a proper end to the series. And by this time, the characters very well. And I just think some of the main characters had very weak ends, to where I was like, that was it. You made this huge buildup for almost nothing for some of the characters. Some of the characters did have an interesting end, but some of the characters you're like, what? That's it. And I can't say which characters, but there's a few characters in there that you were disappointed by the way they got their end, and I felt they didn't get the proper end to the series, especially how much it got built up. So I just felt that was, a little bad for the series as a whole, because it's the end of the series. But with that being said, I still really enjoyed the series, and if you guys are at this point, if you guys got to book 3, I would definitely recommend you guys go and complete the series, because if you enjoyed book 1 and book 2, you will enjoy book 3, and you do want to see how it ends. So I definitely still recommend this book. But I'm going to give it my official rating right now. So I always rate my books on a scale of 0 to 10, with a 0 being an awful book, a 5 is an average, and a 10 is phenomenal. If it's anywhere near 10, put that on your reading list, because I'm a very tough critic, and a 5 is average. So, for the final Hunger Games book, Part 3, The Mockingjay, I'm going to give this a 6. And I think it got quite a drop from the first 2. And I think the reason it being is just that, while it was a fun book, it did have a lot of action and drama and fun elements to it. I just ended the book just feeling very unfulfilled. And it made the series a little down a bit, but I still, still enjoyed the book. But if you guys have any questions or comments, please post it in the comment section below, because I love to hear your opinions. Hope you guys click the subscribe button, as I always upload multiple different types of book reviews. But thank you for watching my book review today. This is Mr. V. Go enjoy reading.